All right, next from Tasha's Cauldron, let's take a look at a section of the book that they call Magical Phenomenon. Now, this comes right after the little section in the book where they describe these different environments where everything had been changed in one way or another. And they had like a haunted house type thing, and one where maybe spiders or something like that had taken over an area. So they move on to something similar where the environment's changing, but maybe just not such a big area or maybe for as long. Like you can see right here, the first two they have covered are Eldritch Storms and then Emotional Echoes. So what are they talking about with these phenomenon? How could these be used in the game? So up here at the top, they tell us magic has the ability to make even the most serene natural settings unpredictable. Whether the result of magical calamities, otherworldly influences, or nexuses of inexplicable forces, the subsequent effects range from whimsical to deadly. So some of them be a little bit fun, maybe for the DM to throw in, others not so much. So first here they talk about Eldritch Storms. When magical currents become trapped amid winds and clouds, eldritch storms can result. So first they mention a type of eldritch storm called a flay wind, and you can see there's some others down below. Supernaturally powerful winds like those from plains such as Pandemonium, or I think that's Menethus, never heard of that one before, the third layer of Carceri, can spawn flay winds. A flay wind is an intense sandstorm gathering large rocks and other debris in addition to sand or grit. So instead of the usual tiny sand particles you think about, large rocks, of course, do a lot of damage. The area within the storm is heavily obscured, and a creature exposed to the storm takes 1d4 slashing damage at the start of each of its turns. Only substantial cover or shelter offers protection against the flensing grit. So evidently there's not much of a way out of this. They can't find shelter. A flay wind leaves 4d6 feet of sand or debris in its wake. So it could be up to 24 feet of sand. Talk about how things get covered up and disappear in the desert. A successful DC 15 intelligence arcana or nature check or wisdom survival check allows a character to recognize a flay wind 1 minute before it strikes, allowing time to seek shelter. So you have a little heads up right there. A flay wind typically lasts 1d4 times 10 hours. So think about that, could be 40 hours of 1d4 slashing damage each turn. Unless something has some powerful regeneration, nothing's going to survive that. So after the sandstorms, they move on to this flame storm. Sooty thunderclouds shot through with red and orange lightning release a deluge of fiery droplets. Any creature caught in the burning rain takes 2d6 fire damage at the start of each of its turns. That's pretty damaging there. The droplets ignite any flammable objects that aren't being worn or carried. Otherwise, the droplets burn out immediately. The smoke, soot, crackle, and low roar of the storm impose disadvantage on wisdom perception checks and ranged attack rolls. So it's going to be very noisy, and of course anything going through there like an arrow is probably going to be hit by this debris. A flame storm usually lasts 2d4 minutes, so it doesn't last as long as the sandstorm, but it's more damaging. Though the originating storm clouds can persist for days, creating multiple flame storms. You could have them sort of being spotty here and there. Next, they talk about necrotic tempest. So now they moved on to necrotic damage. Storms infused with the essence of death roll with dark clouds that manifest leering skulls and bone-white lightning. So the DM could really spook out the players just describing how one of these looks. Any creature exposed to the storm that isn't a construct or an undead must succeed on a DC 13 Constitution saving throw at the end of each minute or take 3d6 necrotic damage. Notice how the damage keeps going up through these right here. A creature that dies in necrotic tempest rises as a skeleton or zombie, your choice, 1d10 minutes later. A necrotic tempest lasts 1d4 hours and leaves crops withered and wells undrinkable for 1d4 days after its passing. So think about this. You could have entire areas, maybe an entire town or whatever gets hit with one of these. The characters come in and there's a town with whatever number you want of undead walking around. Something like a lich maybe comes up with this and sees to it that this thing hits an area. Next they have Thrym's Howl. These bone-chilling blizzards drive a wall of wind and snow like a living glacier. The storm projects extreme cold, and of course that's discussed in the DM's guide. Due to the howling wind and dense blue-white ice particles, The area in the storm, all right, get on with this right here, is heavily obscured, so of course vision is going to be down to almost nothing. And ranged attack rolls and wisdom perception checks made within it have disadvantage. Any creature exposed to the storm at the start of its turn takes 2d6 cold damage and can't regain hit points until it spends at least 1 hour in a warm environment. That could be a big disadvantage there. A creature that dies in the storm freezes solid. I'd have them come back as some type of icy undead there. Creatures that are immune to cold damage are immune to the effects of the storm and can see normally within it. Everyone else going to be in trouble. Thrim's Howl typically lasts 2d10 hours, about like a bad blizzard. Next year, they move on from that section and talk about a different type of region called emotional echoes. Occasionally, a place becomes infused with the powerful emotions of those who once dwelt, worked, celebrated, or suffered there. So it could be maybe good or bad, depending on which one you pick. Areas with emotional echoes are typically associated with one common emotion. So just joy, sorrow, whatever that may be. Pick one emotion and stick with that theme. Such an area might be as small as a room in a house or as large as a forest. So as big or small as you want it. That's handy. Think about some type of house or some other encounter area. Have just one room that maybe all others avoided because of this echo. Once per day, if a creature within the area expresses even the faintest hint of the prevailing emotion, the land seeks to hold on to that creature and inspire it to produce more of the feeling tied to the emotional echo. So anytime somebody, say in the party, maybe expresses or has one of these emotions that's been picked with the echo, that's when it all starts. The creature targeted will be targeted by a suggestion spell with a DC of 16. That's a pretty high DC, with the intent of making it linger in the area and perform an act related to its associated emotion. So anyone failing the save would be forced really to stay in the area and perform some kind of act. The effect lasts for 24 hours. So look at the different echoes they've picking over here. The following list notes some of the most common emotional echoes, where they tend to appear, and how they typically influence creatures. So it could be boldness, appears in battlefields and echoing canyons, encouraging creatures to shout hidden truths. You could have some fun with that and act out their greatest victories. Doubt appears around cliffs or deserts and makes creatures hesitate, mistrusting their ability to climb or escape their current difficulties. Fear appears in caves and ruins, overwhelming creatures with dread and urging them to give voice to their deepest fears. Next is hatred, appears in volcanic regions and provokes creatures to scream and destroy things. That's certainly what volcanoes do, is destroy things. Next is inspiration, appears around memorials or natural wonders, causing creatures to create works of art on the spot and obsess over them. DM could have some fun with that one. Joy appears in glens or flowering fields, inspiring creatures to dance, relax, and sing. Be like a retelling of maybe some kind of movie you've seen where people are running through the fields, like the Sound of Music singing there. So that could be a funny one to use. Love appears along beaches or orchards and encourages creatures to confess their love to others and endlessly list their favorite things. That could be a funny one there. And then lastly here, sorrow appears in ruins and swamps, particularly around quicksand. There's a good place to have it, and overwhelms creatures with sobbing and confessions of regret. So there's some good little environments to throw in too, along with the other ones covered in the book. Hope you use some of these. If you do, send a message at the bottom of this so we can hear about it. Maybe you got a good laugh out of it. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.